take a nap.
You can take it, you have time.
Okay,
You can
so
just
in the first half we try to learn the trip generation, which is production and attraction. Let's go to the second. Is our second stage of the model is this trip distribution model. Now we know from each zone how many trips produced or attracted, but we don't know where they are going. So our problem here is now we have to create these linkages, create the trip itself to this, which becomes an origin-destination matrix. Like remember, we are talking about origin-destination matrix is, say, what we are trying to do here, say we have 3 zones. If we have 3 zones, zone 1, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, we know zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, we know all the production, we know all the attraction, right, for each zone. So we know these numbers from the first stage, all the attraction for each zone. We know all the production for each zone. But what we don't know is for all this production for zone 1, where they are destined to. They come destined in their own, so that's 0. Right? All of those are 0. If we are not modeling intrazonal trips, we are always usually modeling interzonal. So there could be within zone trips too. But we know in general those trips, assuming that those are walking, biking, or other forms are very, very limited, doesn't have much impact on the network. So what we need to do is to distribute this. Say we have zone 1, we have say 50 trips. We try to distribute where they are going. Based on what we know is how many attracted. So we know that attraction too, right? From our first stage. So this is simply trying to distribute your trips so that we know from when we call this Tij means trip from zone I to zone Z, meaning we would like to know T here, T1 to 1, T1 to 2, T1 to 3. So how many starts, so notation is important and it's easier to interpret then. So we know from zone 1 to zone 2, how many trips are going there. Zone 1 to zone 3, how many trips are going. So here, this is T22, T23, and T33. So that's, and so on. Clear? So that's our job. Need to establish the most likely origin destination trip flow, meaning this matrix. This is what we need to load in the network to see how it goes, given known origin and destination for each zone, plus any additional relevant information. Now, what is that additional relevant information is, like there needs to be some assumption, like so that we can distribute, say, say for farther zones, like the long distance zone, maybe not a lot of people, not lot of say, not lot of trips is just destined to where there is not a lot of work or employment, right? Or a lot of long distances they are destined to. So those are the, and we'll go through the system. So this is again just reiterating trip generation, and then we are in the destination step. This is just the same thing that I did. So we know the production, we know the attraction, right? And this production and attraction, interestingly, this T needs to be equal, right? Total production and total attraction should be equal, right? In a given zone, the entire zone, how many trips is produced and how many trips is attracted should be equal. But when you, from the trip generation, when you, this is another problem I will come back, when you do it separately, production and attraction, they might not be equal. So we have to do some procedure to make it equal. Because in a given, like not the ideal, the principle wise, total trips produced must be destined, that should be equal. But our main job in tip distribution is first to find out those those Tij, like those cells like that within the matrix. Right? That way I explain in the book. Right? So that's our job. So how do we do that? So traditionally, the method we use is this gravity model. How many of you heard about Newton's gravity model? In high school physics? No?
Like Newton's law?
Yeah, Newton's law.
Yeah.
Everybody should. Nobody raised your hand.
It's been a while. Like,
It's been a while. So it's the same principle. So we adopted transportation models, adopted the same gravity model, meaning that meaning that there must be some attraction of certain zones or something, and there should be some impedance. Like the more you are farther, the less likely I will be traveling for my trips. For example, distance could be a impedance factor. So the way we do, so it's same Newton's the law. Just try to humanize it, like so that we can generate some distribution, similar kind of principles. So as you can see, how we do it is for Tij, meaning trip from zone I to zone Z is a function of attraction. Like whatever attraction they have, which is we already estimated, right? The attraction of Z, which is here, right? We in the last stage we did so attraction, and as a function of some impedance. Impedance means Fij. I will explain this factor separately. Some impedance, some travel cost, some disruption, some usually distance. So it's a function of that. Clear? So there's just how many attractions. The more an attractive area, the more likely that your more trips will go there. So to do that, we multiply them by my own production, like this I's production, Pi. So we are distributing this total production of this 50. We are distributing based on how much attractiveness each of the zone has. The more likely that this production trip will go here than the other one if this is more attractive. And distance is also an important, which is this Fij. Fij is an impedance factor, usually inverse of some function, say distance. So that's how we do it. And now, while we have aggregation of aggregate of all other equations of all other attractiveness and impedance needs to be aggregated because we want to normalize them. I will show with the example. So Aij, Fij, meaning we sum them up so that we normalize and distribute it equivalently to all. So that's how we do it. Clear? At least like equation wise, then example will clarify. So we have our job is trips from zone I to zone J. We are trying to establish this. It's based mainly on the attraction in that zone. The more attractive, the more of my share of the trips will go there in that zone. Like if this is a 3-zone example, and then we have an impedance factor from travel from zone 1 to zone J. An impedance factor could be some inverse function, usually square. In the Newton law, it's a d square. Remember, the double the distances is. So, and usually people use 2 still in transportation modeling world, but this can be calibrated from the real data too. Based on our origin destination survey, we can find out what should be that cost parameter. Is it a double, like the distance, is it like the squared effect, or 1.39 or 2.39, so it can be calibrated too. General thumbs up rule, people use 2. So 2 squared, 1 by 2 squared is our impedance factor. So yeah, like we are just penalizing that, so that we are just penalizing the attractiveness of it. Let's do the example. I think that will be very easy to understand, particularly those who haven't done much, say, let's do this math. How many of you have some calculators? Okay, that will help, and please try to do it. Then it will really clarify. I saw that this is easy way. So assume that you have a zone 1, and from our last stage we know production is 250 trips. And attraction is 500 trips. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, so let's try. So we know, sorry. Okay, so we know zone 1 has this production, zone 2 has 350 production, and attraction is 200, and production is 400, and attraction is 300. Right? Now we have to distribute them based on the gravity model. And in gravity model, we assume that it's a, I forgot whether we did the d square. I think it's just d. Anyway, we can do both ways. So you can also look at the zone and you can tell which one is that downtown or which one is more suburban area or mixed land use. This is another way of looking at it. Say, this is a lot of attraction. Looks like it's downtown peninsula. Looks like I should not speculate, just to see. Then the production, so smaller production. Some people are maybe going from here to Dartmouth to work for. Right? So here looks like more mixed use, production and attraction 300. And this is 350, it's more production, more suburban area, but there are some attraction. But in real life, there will be even 500 and 0 attraction, or 2 or 5. Like attraction is low, that means it's completely suburban area. Like they are only the bedroom communities. Right? So we can get that. So from here, we know what is the distance between these zones is 4 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 5 kilometer. Now our job, let's do the first one. Let's do, based on our equation, let's do the first one. From zone 1, how many trips are going to zone 2 and zone 3? Our production is 250. So you are actually distributing 250 based on the attraction that you see in other zones. Okay? Is it clear? So what is the T1, 2 and T1, 3? Let's try to get it. So we have to distribute T12 and T13. That's our job. What is our production for T1? Is 250. That's what we need to distribute for. And then you have this function. So what is the attraction for zone 2? AJ. Notation also tells you what is the attraction for zone 2. So we are trying to distribute. Let's think about the problem. I'm trying to be slow here. I know there are different kind of expertise level here. So here, 250 we are trying to distribute to these two zones so that we know how many. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind, these guys have already, we know their attraction, 300 and 200. So a share of that attraction needs to be reflected. So from zone 250, so we put the 250, that's what we are, now what's the share? Share will be, zone 2 is 200, right? 200 multiplied by some sort of impedance. try it and tell me what is the trip number.
That's a whole other different thing. So like you would just be 1 hour distance apart. Yeah. 4 squared. I guess you did it. Yes.
Let's do it together. Oh, there is no square. We just assume that it's proportional to the distance in the examples. So inverse of the distance. So relationship is the more you are farther from, the less likely you will be destined to. And the more attractiveness is more likely to go there. So that's the relationship that we got. So 250 we are distributing. Okay, follow with me. Like if, so 250. So attraction of zone 2, right? Zone J is 2. What is the attraction? Attraction number for zone 2? 200. So 200. So that means it will more like more bringing that, and then multiply or divided, multiply by, what is your impedance? Kilometer? Distance? So 1 divided by 4, right? Distance from zone 1 to zone 2. Right? Here I just put like the divided by. So that's the share. The same way for the T1 to T3, we need to distribute is, production is 400 for zone 1. So we are distributing 400. And what is the attraction of zone 3? 300. And what is the distance? My impedance. 1 divided by? Distance. 3. So meaning that my production get distributed proportional to my attraction and the inverse proportional to my distance, because distance is an impedance. Right? So that's our percentage share, but we have to normalize. So what we will do is the summation of both, like summation of these two functions, 200 divided by 4 plus 300 divided by 3. So this is a normalization function, so that we have a 300 by 3. So that we know from here how many trips destined to from zone 1 to 3, which is 83 trips for zone 1 to 3, and zone 1 to 2, and zone 1 to 3 is 167. I'll give this kind of the reason why I'm going so detailed here. The exams might have some of these problem sets. So, are you guys clear? Let me intuitively try to see. So this is like based on, so if you now add them together, you'll see this is 250, right? Total production, you are just taking the ratio of the attractions. So 250 is distributed, 1 to 2, 1 to 3. Everybody got it? Any question here? Because I will give you the next task now to do the rest of it.
So the summation needs to include all of the connections.
Both of them, both of their percentage share, so that the total numbers remain same of these 250. You can think this way as well. So that like the total number goes back, this is we are normalizing, just making sure like the both numbers equates to the 250, my original production. This is a basic mathematics kind of normalization. So both of them. So this is coming these factors and these factors. That's the summation of Aj, Fij. So summation of all. Summation of all zones available. The summations of that factor of all zones available. So that means what we got, let's solve it here. So we know from zone, we have 2 zones or 3 zones? Yeah, so that's a good example. So we know from zone 1 to 2, it's 83 trips. Let's like create the matrix. We all know from our, let's do this later. Okay? So we know from zone 1, production is, what is the zone 1 production? 250. What is the production of zone 2? 350. What is the production of zone 3? 400. And what is the attraction of zone 1? 500. Attraction of zone 2? 200. And attraction of 300. Right? So from our exercise, we found our job is to fill this gap in terms of like practically speaking, is we got 0 trips, 1 to 1 because no intrazonal. 1 to 2 we got 83 and we got 167. See, 83 and 167 should be equal to 250. Right? Now you guys should do 2 to 1 and 2 to 3. Do those. Fill other gaps based on the same principle. You have all the information to do that. You have the equation, attraction, and our impedance is no square, it's just the distance. It's disproportional to this distance. So please calculate zone 2 to zone 1, and zone 2 to zone 3, and zone 3 to zone, all of those. Everybody, please go through this exercise. So what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? Using the same principle. And your equation is, let me simplify the equation. I saw that textbook one. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should keep this. So Tij, I think this is easier to go to. Tij is attraction Aj, and instead of F, you just directly use 1 by D, which is F, 1 by D, and then subtract this equation. So summation of all Aj and 1 by Dij. So Ij here. And this is multiplied by, of course, this production of I. Okay, this is an easier equation to follow, I believe, than the textbook one. Textbook one is more generalization because sometimes we use travel time as a cost, impedance, or some square root of. So that's your gravity model equation for us. Or even more simplified could be Aj divided by Dij. Yeah, this is multiplication. This is multiplication. This is multiplication. So your job is now to find out T21 and then T23 and other case T31, T32. You got it?
I have a question.
Sure.
When you get a decimal, are you supposed to round up or round down?
That's a very good question. Trips cannot be fraction, right? So rounding problem is a big problem in our matrices. Here we are talking about only 3 zones. Zones are usually thousands, right? So you have to take a consistent approach, but making sure that it equates to the production, right? So consistent approach, but there will be treatment afterward. For this type of smaller problem, usually I would go either round up 0.5 up or round down 0.5 down, unless there is a discrepancy in terms of tolerance. But that's a huge problem for the LD matrices. I want everybody finishing it, telling me the right number you got it. I'll give more complex problem in the exam. No, I'm kidding. It's just simply distribution, your pie. How much money you want to spend? Think about other way. You have some money you want to distribute in shopping mall, Halifax shopping mall versus Mi'kmaq mall. Now, whoever has a more attractiveness, you might be spending more money for the attractive places. Whoever is more distance, you are less likely to travel and spend your money. Right? It's another way of thinking. So what do you got for 2, 2 to 1? 36? 236? Okay. Anybody else? 236. And T2 to 3?
140.
140? 114? Okay. And 3, 1?
3 to 3.
3, 2, 3.
77.
77.
I'm still on the third one.
You differ on the third one? We'll go through. 77? Yeah. Okay. So it's simple. Whoever is not following so far, it's okay not you are not following so far. It's okay, just let me know. We can go through again, or I will give you a little bit more time to just you guys see. First, establish the proportional pieces, right? This side, which is attraction of J means 1. So A1, what is A1? Attraction of zone 1. What is attraction of zone 1? 500? Perfect. And then divided by is 1 by D, that's why. What is the distance between 2 and A? 1. 4 kilometers. Done. The same thing you should do here for the other one. What is that attractiveness of J? Means 3. Zone 3. 300. What is the distance between them? 2 and 3. 5 kilometers. Done. Then how much distribution you need to, how much production 2 has that you need to distribute is 350. Okay. And then we put the normalization factor, meaning summation of these 2. If it's 5 zones, then 4 zones. So simply 500 divided by 4 plus 300 divided by 5. Same thing here, because that's the summation of all, plus 300 divided by 5. You equate that, you get that. You get that. Yeah?
Just have a question. So why don't we, they always sum up to the production, right? So
The
why
O's?
The matrix, like,
These ones?
everything in one row sum up to the production, right?
Right.
So why don't we just find one and subtract the production from the production?
That's you can do too. But it's only because you know here 3 zones problem. That's what you could do. But it's 100 zone, 1,000 zone.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go to the fundamentals of the problem, because even you guys don't recalculate this way in the model. The ME will calculate for yourself, but I want to give you the full understanding of what's going on in the back end. So this is like how it gets distributed. Yes, you can do that, like many other ways, even like the third one is not that, you don't need to do that as well. Please finish the 3.1 and 3.2 so that you really get the essence of it. And if you do not understand, please ask me. I can maybe try to explain it in a different way. Right. Yeah, but it doesn't. That's how I'm coming next. Right, that's how I'm coming. Yeah, can you sum them so that I know the numbers and I can write them? That's how what I'm coming next. That's why we need that ME software. You guys got 3.32A1 and 3.22? Got it? Okay. That 3.1, this 2. Okay, half it. No. I will come to that point. Yes, that's the interesting, another interesting. But that will be 0 for sure. The reason is we are not modeling zone 1 to zone 1. Like within intertrip, we just ignore that. We try to abstract because in the network we will not be loading, so there is no point of calculating the intratrip. Intratrip means, say, the traffic analysis could be our Halifax, our Dalhousie, Booker City. So we assume that all the internal trips is either walk, bike, or you are taking bus. It's not really adding too much. So we are just ignoring that detail. But some models do intra-trips as well. I'll come to the, so that will be different. We'll do both. Everybody finished on 3.1 and 3.2? Okay.